A crisis of confidence facing sagging support with Black and Hispanic voters. Vice President Kamala Harris unveiling new proposals targeting the key demographic groups. But is it all too little, too late, just 3 weeks before Election Day? Welcome to the No Spin Zone. Graphs Grievances starts right now. I frequently get asked, how could any Black person, how could any Hispanic person, how could any woman vote for Donald Trump? The twice impeached former president has made clear throughout his public life that he is racist and misogynistic. Viewers of this channel know well I have chronicled numerous instances of Trump's prejudice right here. But today, with just 3 weeks until Election Day, I want to call your attention to the real problem, if the polls are to be believed, that Kamala Harris has with Black and Hispanic voters. And yes, it is true that Harris will win the vast majority of Black and Hispanic voters, as Democrats have for years. But Harris's softening of support with these two key pillars of the Democratic coalition could pose a real problem for her in several swing states. As you can see here, in 2016, 92% of Black voters cast a ballot for Democrat Hillary Clinton, while 7% voted for Donald Trump. 4 years later, 90% of Black voters cast a ballot for Democrat Joe Biden, while 9% voted for Trump. And this year, according to the latest New York Times Siena College poll of Black likely voters, 78% say they will vote for Harris and 15% say they will vote for Trump. That is a huge drop-off, especially considering Harris would be America's first Black female and first Asian American president. Activists on the left have long argued, sometimes quite divisively, that if Democrats just nominated more diverse candidates, that would boost minority turnout. Harris is eroding support not just with Black men. According to the New York Times, Harris is also underperforming among Black women, especially those without a college degree. 4 years ago, Biden won 93% of Black women voters. Harris's support among Black women is polling at 83%. So what accounts for this drop-off in Black support? 74% of Black voters, according to the Times, rate the economy fair or poor. And the economy is the most important issue to Black voters. More important than abortion, their second most pressing concern. And I think this is really interesting. Regarding some of Trump's main talking points, many Black voters agree with him. 56% saying the U.S. should pay less attention to problems overseas and concentrate more on problems at home. Trump talks about this all the time. "I'll end the war in Ukraine before I'm even inaugurated," he cries. But perhaps even more surprising is that 40% of Black voters agree with Trump that America should build a wall on our southern border with Mexico. And 41% of Black voters are in favor of deporting migrants illegally in America. Literally every time Trump opens his mouth, he promises to immediately begin mass deportations of undocumented immigrants if he is reelected. And finally, 47% of Black voters say crime in big cities has gotten out of control in the U.S., this seeming to align with Trump's false dystopian portrayal of America under President Biden. In reality, crime rates, especially murder, have fallen dramatically across the United States since Trump left office and the pandemic ended. So, considering these numbers on specific policy issues, it is kind of surprising Trump isn't actually polling better with Black voters, which makes you wonder whether Trump's overall support with Black Americans is being accurately captured by this poll. And this could pose a real problem for Harris in the key swing states of Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, where Black Americans make up a respective 33%, 24%, and 11% of each state's population. In addition to struggling with Black Americans, Harris is facing an even bigger problem with Hispanic Americans. And before I break down the numbers, it is important to first note that Democrats have never had a stranglehold over Hispanic voters like they have had with Black voters. But here you see the declining support for Democrats among the largest racial and ethnic minority group in the United States. In 2016, Hillary Clinton capturing 68% of Hispanic voters to just 28% for Donald Trump. 4 years later, in 2020, Biden winning 62% of Hispanic voters to 36% for Trump. That's almost a 10-point increase for a man who says stuff like this repeatedly.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. You know, when they let, I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country, when they do that, we got a lot of work to do. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them. They just come in. The crime is going to be tremendous. The terrorism is going to be. And then we built a tremendous piece of the wall, and then we're going to build more. Today, our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force, and their jobs are taken. By the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The Black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our Black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions. And look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
How about allowing people to come through an open border, 13,000 of which were murderers? Many of them murdered far more than one person, and they're now happily living in the United States. You know, now a murderer, I believe this, it's in their genes, and we got a lot of bad genes in our country right now.
None of that is true, and study after study has shown that immigrants commit crime at lower rates than native-born Americans. Yet despite Trump's escalating attacks on immigrants, his support with Hispanic Americans is set to grow once again. According to the Times, just 56% of Hispanic Americans now saying they support Harris, while 37% say they support Trump. Back in 2012, roughly 70% of Hispanic voters backed President Barack Obama for re-election. So what might account for this drastic shift? Guess what? 43% of Hispanic voters say they support both building a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, and 44% support deporting migrants living in the United States illegally. As for the most important issue in deciding who to vote for, 27% of Hispanic Americans citing the economy, followed by abortion at 15% and immigration at 10%. The Hispanic voters surveyed also more likely to say that Trump's policies helped them personally than Biden's policies, 35% to 22%. Overall, Hispanic men saying they are more likely than Hispanic women to support Trump, 45% to 31%. The apparent defections by Hispanic voters from the Democratic fold potentially representing a big problem for Harris in the key swing states of Arizona, Nevada, and North Carolina, where Hispanic Americans make up 31%, 29%, and 11% of each state's population, respectively. So, in a last-ditch effort to reach both Black and Hispanic voters, Harris is ramping up outreach to both groups, unveiling a new set of proposals targeting Black men and granting interviews to popular Black male radio and podcast hosts, including Charlemagne the God and Roland Martin. Harris also doubling down on her tough immigration rhetoric that Hispanic voters say they care most about. Will it be enough to buoy her support with Black and Hispanic voters? That remains to be seen. But you can count on full continuing analysis right here. Thank you for watching Graph's Grievances. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, share, and join me in the next one.